Hello everybody, this is SpeedComet47 here. Today, I'm going to be making a tier list video of the classic Sonic zones. Now this is just my own personal opinion, so let's be respectful, okay? If you guys want to see some more tier list videos, be sure to subscribe and I'll make some more. Alright, we're going to start with S tier being the best and I would love to play it again, and F being the worst and I would never want to play that again. Alright, the first zone is Sonic 1, Green Hill Zone. Green Hill is very popular. Some people say it's overrated, and we see it quite a lot. I mean, I love this zone. It's great for speed and all, and it's very easy to get 50 rings for the special stage. I love Green Hill with a burning passion, especially the first act. Act 2 is also amazing, and Act 3, pretty good. Despite there being some obstacles and whatnot, I'd say I'm going to give Green Hill a solid S tier. Alright, next is Marble Zone. Marble Zone's not that good because that zone makes it very hard to not get hit. Whenever you play Sonic 1, that's another issue I have whenever I play Sonic 1 because you must be very careful to not get hit if you want to get a special stage. And that's not very easy to get 50 rings in Marble Zone, do with all the spikes and the lava and whatnot. And some parts if you fall off, you have to come back all over again. Although there's some parts that make you go fast, but some places for speed and all. But other than that, it isn't that too bad. So I'm just going to give Marble Zone a B tier. Alright, next is Spring Yard Zone. There are some good places to get some speed and whatnot. But aside from Act 3, that bottomless pit, you need to be careful. I hate bottomless pits. Spring Yard Side's definitely good for me, because I do like to get 50 rings and let them bounce around with all that springs. And that Cope sign, pretty funny. Not gonna cap. And those spikes and whatnot and those spinny spike balls do make it tricky to try and get 50 rings too, but it's still not a bad zone to get 50 rings. So I'm gonna give Spring Yard Zone an A tier. The only reason I'm not giving it an S is, well, because of the bottomless pits in Act 3 and whatnot. Alright, Labyrinth Zone F tier. Do I even need to say it? This zone sucks ass. Because with all the water in that zone completely turns down the pacing, and there's no redeeming qualities. And that horrible theme if you stay in the water for too long makes me panic. Oh yeah, and don't get me started on Scrap Brain Zone Act 3. That's basically Labyrinth Zone Act 4 if you put it to mind. I hate Labyrinth Zone. Now I see why people hate water zones. Alright, next up is Starlight Zone. Starlight Zone is pretty good. I'm also going to give this another S tier. Starlight Zone is very good because it has a lot of places for you to go fast. Plus, it's a good stage. Plus, I do like a challenge with also being a good stage. I love Starlight Zone as well. In my opinion, I think Starlight Zone is the best zone in Sonic 1. Alright, Scrap Brain Zone, the last zone in Sonic 1. Well, for Scrap Brain Zone, it is mid. It's not as bad as Labyrinth, but I don't like that zone so much. Because you can't, there's only a few things you can't let that last zone get to you on. Scrap Brain Zone has way too many death pits and way too many pits. If you can, and if you play that last zone, you have to resist the temptation to jump. If you don't resist the temptation, you'll fall into the pit and have to start all over faster than you can blink. So with Scrap Brain, the last zone, I'm just gonna give it a C tier. Alright, now to one of the goated games in the classics, Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Do I even need to say much about Emerald Hill? Another S tier. but I'm going to put it above Starlight Zone. Emerald Hill is great. And to be honest, Sega, you need to bring Emerald Hill back. Green Hill's had enough. Emerald Hill is an amazing zone to start off. It has a lot of speed locations. You can go fast anywhere. And if you're skilled enough, you can get all the Chaos Emeralds in Sonic 2 on the first zone if you know where to get the 50 rings and find a checkpoint. Once you know what you're doing. Alright, Chemical Plant Zone, a fucking fire zone with an amazing fire track to boot. I'm gonna give it another S tier, but below Starlight Zone. The reason why I'm putting it lower because, well, I just love the fact that it's an amazing zone that gives you a lot of speed. But the reason I'm placing it lower like this because of Act 2. Because when I was a kid, I got stuck on the water part. Like, why is the water pink? I always got stuck on that part when I was a kid. I couldn't get past because of that dumbass pink water. But yeah, other than that, it's still an S tier. Alright, Aquatic Ruin Zone. This next zone from Sonic 2 is a much better, much more tolerable water zone than Labyrinth Zone back in Sonic 1. It's half a water zone with lots of land. I always stay on the top part, but if you go in the water, you have to carefully get out of there. But yeah, Aquatic Ruin's definitely amazing. And I also love the vibe of the music as well of Aquatic Ruin. I'm going to give this zone a solid A tier. Alright, Casino Night. If you like to gamble for some rings, go for it. But be careful. Those slot machines have egghead symbols in there. Get them and you lose all your rings. So I would advise for you to just be careful if you're gambling, because don't play too much. But other than that, a good speedy zone. I'm going to give this zone another A tier, but above Aquatic Ruin Zone. Alright, next up, Hilltop. Hilltop is good. Some parts of it has speed with the lava and whatnot, but taking fall damage if you're super, man, that's kind of dumb. But other than that, it's a very good zone. I do like the vibe of Hilltop. It's kind of like Emerald Hill, but a bit better. So I'm gonna also give this zone I'll give it an A tier, but above Casino Night. Alright, next up is Mystic Cave. That music is amazing. If you played one of the ports and whatnot, you can go to Hidden Palace Zone. But if you don't, well, you can't go in there. It really sucks. But at least it was a good Easter egg, at least. But other than that, I think Mystic Cave is good. So I'm going to give this zone a B tier because with the Hidden Palace Zone. It would have gotten an A if it was easier to get with a Genesis, but it's not. Alright, next is Oil Ocean. Oil Ocean is... I'm not a big fan of Oil Ocean. The Mania version is way better. Not with all the cannons are slow, especially the elevators and whatnot. It's pretty slow. Especially some of the springs that you gotta push. Why couldn't they just be like the normal springs or whatnot? So yeah. Since I like the Mania version of Oil Ocean better, that does give it some redeeming qualities, I'm just gonna give this a B tier. I know what you're thinking, Chase. Speed comment? Why'd you put Metropolis Zone in F tier? Dude, do I even need to tell you how I hate Metropolis Zone as the next person? Because seriously, I hate Metropolis Zone just as much as Labyrinth Zone. Because seriously, the praying mantis, those starfish, and don't get me started with those stupid crabs. The enemy placement in that game is shit. And not only that, it's the only zone in Sonic 2 that has 3 acts. It's a good thing that whenever I play Sonic 2, I always grab all the Chaos Summons to get Super Sonic before getting to that zone, so that way I won't have too much of a hassle. But still, I hate Labyrinth Zone even more than Metropolis. They both suck, and I don't want to play them again. Alright, Sky Chase, I'm just going to give this a D tier. Because the reason I'm giving it this, it's mid, and I don't like mid. And the only good part about this zone, there's only one act. The music's still good, and it does give you a nice breather after the tedious crap that you have to go through Metropolis Zone. And you just, it's just mid. All right, next is Wing Fortress Zone. Wing Fortress, I'm not a fan of that airship one, because that thing's a huge bundleless pit if you're reckless, especially with Supersonic. I'd recommend if you have all the Chaos Emeralds, wait till at least you get to the halfway part of the ship. That way you'll be safe and you won't fall into the bottomless pit. So yeah, this one's gonna get at least a C tier because I think the music is good. All right, the last zone, Death Egg Zone. Yeah, I'm just gonna give it a D. Sure, maybe the last zone, but seriously, no rings to protect you? Really? Once you face off against Mark 1 Sonic and the Death Egg Robot, you need to be careful. If you're not, you're gonna start all over. Be careful and don't get greedy. And make sure you have plenty of lines before taking on Egghead. Alright, now we're on to Sonic CD. Palm Tree Panic, I'm gonna give it a I'm gonna give it an A, but above Aquatic Ruin. Sonic CD is a good game. I played it. Palm Tree Panic is underrated, and it is a very good stage to start off Sonic CD. Especially if you go to the past or the future. It definitely looks very good. It's a very underrated stage, in my opinion. Alright, next, Collision Chaos. When Sonic first met Amy, she was captured by Metal Sonic, and then Sonic had to go save her, while also taking down Egghead. And the pinball looking boss, pretty fun. I do like me a good game of pinball to the day. So, for Collision Chaos, I'm gonna give this one another A tier, but below Aquatic Ruin. Alright, Tidal Tempest. It is pretty much a more tolerable water stage again, but I don't like the past music. The past music is not my type. So, due to the fact that you only have to hit Egghead once when you get to the boss, so I'm just gonna give this water zone a C tier. Alright, Quartz Quadrant, it's a very good stage. Not only is that stage goated, you can go incredibly fast and get a lot of rings to get a time stone or whatnot. I'm gonna give it an A tier above Casino Night. I do in my downtime I do like to study and look up different types of crystals. And I think crystals are beautiful. Alright. Next, Wacky Workbench. I'm just gonna give this a D tier. The only reason I'm not giving it an F is this. You need to grab all the time stones before getting to Wacky Workbench. Because if you don't, the electricity is gonna fry you. And once you have all the time stones, and the electricity will be shut off, and you won't have too much of a trouble. So I highly recommend getting all the time stones before getting to that zone. Otherwise, you're gonna be in deep trouble. Alright, Stardust Speedway, another S tier. but I'll put it above Chemical Plant. Stardust Speedway is an amazing stage, especially the boss race against Metal Sonic. That's what made Metal Sonic who he is. There should be more boss races like this more often, if not even more. That classic Metal Sonic boss race was amazing. There should be more of Metal Sonic in the future, to be honest. Alright. The last one, Metallic Madness, the last zone. Some parts of the first act is good, but the second one is trash. Because you got it can literally take you like almost the entire time. And if you're not fast enough, you'll probably get a timeout. I mean a time over. That's what makes this zone bad. This Act 3 is okay, even though it's the final boss, but still, I don't like the second act. I got stuck on it. But the first act in the final boss does give it some redeeming quality, so I'm just gonna give this a B tier. Alright, now on to Sonic 3 and Knuckles. First up for the Sonic 3 version. Angel Island. Act 1 is an A tier for me. Act 2 is definitely an S tier, because that music is definitely the vibe. I still like Mushroom Hill just as much as Angel Island. But we'll talk about those two later. I'm going to put both Mushroom Hill and Angel Island in S tier, but just let me get to Sonic 3's portion first, then I'll talk about Mushroom Hill. Alright, Hydro City, a much better water level. Plus, it's amazing, you go incredibly fast in and out of the water like a pro. Act 2 is the best act of Hydro City. I'm going to give it an S tier, above Starlight Zone and Emerald Hill. Because I love that Act 2 music. Alright. Next is Marble Garden Zone. Marble Garden, I kind of don't like it. The music's good, but the way it's laid out, I'm just gonna put it in C tier. Same thing with Carnival Night. Because before any of you tell me, speak comment, why C tier? Dude, I'm gonna tell you why I put Carnival Night in C tier, because of the barrels. If any of you got stuck on the barrel of doom, that only happened to me once. And at least I figured it out how to get through. Just gotta move up and down. Man, I hate that barrel. Do I even need to say anything about Ice Cap going in S tier? Because that's where it's going. Because, that music. Good old Michael Jackson. It's a shame that he passed away. But I dig that Ice Cap music. Yeah. Beautiful level design and fun environments. Oh, yeah. Ice Cap Zone. Alright. Launch Space. I'm gonna give Launch Space an A tier. Because it's the final zone of Sonic 3. But I'm gonna put it above Palm Tree Panic. You see, with Launch Space, both acts are, I'd say both Launch Space Act 1 is A tier, but Act 2 would be an S tier. Act 2 has 3 different bosses depending on which character you use. But yeah, I like the final boss of Sonic 3. Alright, back to what I said. Both Mushroom Hill and Angel Island and Mushroom Hill are both going in S tier. But I'm gonna put Mushroom Hill above. Wait, hold on. There we go. The reason why I'm putting Mushroom Hill above Angel Island is this. If you get all the Chaos Emeralds in Sonic 3 and get Hypersonic, Mushroom Hill is definitely the best zone to get the other emeralds. I know where all the special rings are at heart, and I found them all to get Hypersonic. But Sega, why don't you bring back Hypersonic anymore? Despite just lower the ellipsine so no one will have a seizure. Alright. Now, Flying Battery, another S tier. That funky music brings up a vibe. I'm gonna put it above Stardust Speedway. Because I dig that vibe of Flying Battery. Oh yeah. Flying Battery is one of the better airship levels in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Alright. Sandopolis F tier. I'll only explain why Sandopolis is F tier. It's because of this. Act 1 is good, but Act 2 is trash. Because of those stupid ghosts. If you're not knowing what you're doing, you're going to get a timeout and you'll get stuck in that one particular spot in Sandopolis Act 2. And I'll say it again. Act 1 is good, but Act 2 is trash. Alright. Lava Reef, it's another good zone. I'm going to put it at the top of A tier. But Act 2 is S tier. I like Lava Reef. Especially when you get to Act 2, the place changes colors. It's very cool. Alright, next, Sky Sanctuary. If you play as Knuckles, you play the epic boss against Mecha Sonic, which I think Mecha Sonic needs to return back into the Sonic games. And if you play Sonic, you facing off against him with Hypersonic. Still fun though. And it brings back all the bosses from Sonic 1 and 2 respectively, with 2 being Metropolis's boss and Sonic 1, the very first one. Then you face them against Mecha Sonic. Definitely fun. For both of them to balance out the ups about Sky Sanctuary, I'm gonna give it an S tier, but I'm gonna put it above Angel Island. Alright, the Death Egg Zone. It can be tricky if you don't know what you're doing, but I get there fast, and I know it from the back of my heart. I'm gonna give the Death Egg Zone both with Act 1 and Act 2, respectively, an A tier for me. But I'm gonna put it below Lava Reef. And for the Doomsday Zone, if you get all the Chaos Emeralds / Super Emeralds, I'm gonna give it an S tier because I love that final boss. Because I just dashed right into Egghead's ship to get the Master Emerald back. But I'll put it below Angel Island. When I grab all the emeralds, I always grab like more than enough rings and just charge straight at that Egghead and get the Master Emerald back. Alrighty, now let's move on to good old Sonic Mania. I love Sonic Mania. Now, for Sonic Mania, the Mania version of Green Hill is definitely a vibe. It combines all the previous acts with Act 2 having a huge improvement. It's so amazing. When I first played Sonic Mania on my 25th birthday, it was amazing. Sonic Mania is so amazing. I would definitely give Sonic Mania a solid S tier. But anyway, back to the game zones. With Green Hill Sonic Mania, I'm gonna give it an S tier, but I'm gonna put it above the original Green Hill. Alright. Now for Mania's Chemical Plant. Oh man, what do I have to say about Chemical Plant and Mania? I love the Chemical Plants Mania music. It's so amazing. It's like the I still like the classic Chemical Plant theme as well. But with the with Chemical Plant Act 1 being the best zone in my opinion, well the best act in that zone, I liked how the way that when you rush through the Chemical Plant, it's like combining the acts of 1 and 2 respectfully with a huge improvement, and that was so awesome. Plus, I definitely love the Act 2 boss as well, because it's got the good old Mean Bean Machine. And I kicked Egghead's ass in that game. So this zone, also another S tier. But I'm gonna put it above Ice Cap. Chemical Plant's my favorite zone in all Sonic games. Alright, Studiopolis, what's to say? So much replayability. I just love Studiopolis. Another S tier. The way you go fast, all those loop-de-loops. And that and do I where do I even start with that? Lights, camera, action. So amazing. Such an amazing zone. I love Studiopolis. Alright. Flying Battery. Mania. Ha. Another S tier for me. Because both acts are amazing. I especially love Mania's Act 2 Flying Battery. Makes me go fast like a speeding bullet. As to where to place Chemical Plant, Mania's Flying Battery, I'm going to put it below Sonic 2's Chemical Plant. The one in Sonic Mania's Flying Battery is amazing, but I still like the original Flying Battery as well. Alright, next up is Press Garden. The way the fact that Press Garden goes, the fact that some parts in Act 2 you get frozen, which can be a problem when you're facing up against the boss and whatnot, but to me, I'm gonna say Press Garden's pretty good, but overall, I don't like the part when you get hacked and slashed by the ice when you face off against that boss heavy. But other than that, it's pretty good. I'm just gonna give this zone a B tier above Mystic Cave Zone. Alright, next is Stardust Speedway. Stardust Speedway's Mania version, definitely a vibe. Especially since Mecha Sonic transformed, Metal Sonic transformed to look like that Metal Sonic variant from Knuckles Chaotix. Definitely amazing. Especially that part where you race through again. Feels like you're playing CD all over again. I like the Act 1 more. But Act 2 is amazing. So for Mania's Stardust Speedway, I'm going to give it an A tier. Then, better yet, top of A. Now for Mania's Hydro City Zone, it's amazing. Sure, Act 1 can be troublesome if you don't know what you're doing, but Act 2 is still amazing. It feels like you're playing Act 2's Hydro City again through Sonic 3 and Knuckles. But there are some obstacles in part that kind of makes it relatively different compared to it, but it's still an amazing zone. Some parts of it I kind of found not that good at all, and due to the fact that normally where you find the special rings to get the Chaos Stones in Sonic 3 and K, kind of brings it down a bit. But overall, Mania's Hydro City Zone is still pretty good. So I'm going to give Mania's Hydro City an S tier, but below Sky Sanctuary. But still a vibe. And it's still solid. Alright. Next, Mirage Saloon. Alright, Mirage Saloon, it's a very good desert level. And the fact you see cameos of Bean, Fang, and Bark pretty brings it pretty much interesting for me. I was not expecting that to happen. But Mirage Saloon Act 1's boss, it's kind of like Sky Chase Zone all over again, but with some improvements. That's good. Although it could have been executed a little bit more better to make it a bit more accurate. But hey, I'll take what I can get. So for Mirage Saloon Zone, I'm going to give it a solid A tier above Death Egg Zone. Alright, next is Mania's Oil Ocean version. Oil Ocean is definitely fun, especially when you light the oil on fire, but inhaling so much smoke is hazardous to your health, so you gotta be quick and find those levers so you don't lose your rings. At least it's better than Sandopolis' version, but you still have to be quick when you're playing around in Mania's Oil Ocean. So I'm going to give Mania's Oil Ocean an A tier, but below Spring Yard Zone. Alright, Mania's Lava Reef. Mania's Lava Reef is definitely cool. It is different compared to the Sonic and Knuckles version, but the music's still a vibe, and it still bops. And as for the ranking for Mania's Lava Reef, I've played it, but as for me, for this zone, I'm going to give it, I'm going to give it an A tier, but above Palm Tree Panic. Oops. Here we go. Alright, next is Metallic Madness's Mania version. It is different, and due to the fact that you can go into the background, that's definitely a vibe. When you go directly into the background, it kind of reminds me of Kirby Triple Deluxe on the 3DS. When you go into the background when you play on your 3DS or 2DS or whatnot, going into the background is very cool. It is much more tolerable compared to CDs. But the only thing that kind of brings it down a bit is with those saws and the not knowing where you're trying to go. So I'm just gonna give this zone a B tier above Press Garden. Alright. Next is Titanic Monarch Zone, the final zone in Mania. With that zone, yeah, it was hard for me to try to. Sure, does have a lot of speed places, but trying to get to the final boss was definitely tricky for me. It was tough for me to beat that last boss, but I managed to get through at the end, regardless. And so, for the last zone of if you don't get all the Chaos Emeralds, I'm going to give this zone an A tier, but at the bottom. Alright. And now the last zone, Egg Reverie Zone, if you don't get all the Chaos Emeralds when you play Sonic Story. I didn't get there yet, but I've heard good things about that boss. That boss is amazing. But you gotta use your rings carefully if you're gonna dash into the Heavy Cannon Egghead when they're fighting over the Phantom Ruby. You gotta hit him a couple of times with Super and managing the ring count and whatnot. But if you do it effectively, that boss is very tolerable. So for this extra last zone, I'm going to give this zone a solid S tier, but at the bottom of the S, but above Doomsday Zone. All right, everyone. That's my list. So, what do you all think? This is my own personal opinion. If you have different opinions, that's fine, but please be respectful if you're trying to tell me what you think about these zones. But anyway, that's it gonna be for this video. Like and subscribe for more. This is Speed Comet 47 signing out.